unfortunately had to withdraw today with lower back issues, and
The RNA contacted me a couple weeks before and said, look, we don't think it's a great idea if you go, but if you want to, you can. And I said, I just didn't want to make a big deal about it, so I said, fine.
Two former champions, one tournament, and by the time Thursday's first tee shot goes off at Royal Birkdale, neither of them will be standing on that course. One pulled out because his body finally gave out on him again. The other walked away from something that's lasted 36 years, and the reason behind it is a lot more personal than anyone expected. Stay with me, because the second story completely changes how you'll look at this year's Open Championship. If you follow the PGA Tour and everything happening around the biggest events in golf, hit like before we get into it because you're going to want to see how these two stories connect. Louis Oosthuizen has officially withdrawn from the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale, and the reason is a back injury that's been following him for years. This isn't just about missing one tournament either. Oosthuizen also confirmed he's pulling out of next week's LIV Golf UK event, which means he's losing two tournaments back-to-back that he said he was genuinely looking forward to. Oosthuizen broke the news himself, writing that it wasn't the update he wanted to share. He said it was incredibly disappointing to miss two events he always looks forward to, but that his focus right now has to be on recovery and making sure he's fully healthy before he steps back onto a golf course. And when you look at his history, you can hear exactly why that statement carries so much weight. This injury ends a run that started back in 2008. Since then, Oosthuizen has teed it up at every single Open Championship, with the only blemish coming in 2013 when he withdrew mid-tournament. This year is different. This year, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, he won't even show up to golf's oldest major. Back problems have haunted Oosthuizen's career for a long time now. Fans have watched him pull out mid-round, scratch before events even begin, and grind through visible discomfort more times than anyone would like to count. And since he joined LIV Golf back in 2022, his major championship results have taken a serious hit too. In 5 major starts since the move, he's made the cut exactly once, a tie for 60th at the 2022 PGA Championship. He's missed the cut in 3 of his last 4 Open Championships. For a player who once looked automatic in major championship contention, that drop-off is jarring. Because here's the thing people forget when they only look at the recent numbers. Back in 2010 at St. Andrews, Oosthuizen delivered one of the most dominant performances in Open Championship history. He finished 16 under par and won by 7 full shots over Lee Westwood to lift the claret jug. Since 1913, the only player to win by a wider margin at the Open is Tiger Woods, who won by 8 at St. Andrews in 2000. That win looked like the start of something enormous. And while Oosthuizen never captured a second major, he came agonizingly close, finishing runner-up at all 4 majors over the course of his career, including that gut-punch playoff loss to Zach Johnson back at St. Andrews in 2015, on the very same course where he'd once been untouchable. So who benefits from all of this? That's where the story gets interesting again. Fellow South African Aldrich Potgieter is stepping into the field as the first alternate. Just hours before Oosthuizen's announcement, Potgieter had finished 3rd in Monday's final qualifying event, and he likely assumed his week was over. Instead, he's now getting a shot on one of the biggest stages in the sport, arriving with momentum, confidence, and honestly, nothing to lose. Royal Birkdale is a classic links setup where belief and firm and fast creativity can carry a player a long way, and Potgieter is walking in hot off a strong qualifying round. Sometimes that's exactly the kind of player who shocks everyone during major week. As for Oosthuizen, there's no firm timeline for his return yet. If his recovery goes smoothly, his next scheduled live golf appearance would be the New York event in early August. But right now, the only priority is getting healthy. Now let's get into the second story because in a lot of ways, this one hits even harder. It's about a career milestone that's been building for 36 years, and it closes today with almost no fanfare at all. Phil Mickelson has withdrawn from the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale. He was actually listed in the field, so this isn't a case of him simply not entering. He was in, and then he pulled out, and with that decision, Mickelson misses all 4 men's majors in 2026 for the first time in his career. 36 years. That's how long Mickelson had shown up to golf's biggest stages, whether he was contending for the trophy or just bringing his trademark shot-making to a crowd that adored him. And now that streak is over. Mickelson's team cited a family health matter as the reason behind the decision. And if that phrase sounds familiar, it should, because it echoes almost exactly what happened back in 2009, when Mickelson withdrew from that year's Open to be by his wife Amy's side during her cancer treatment. That absence became one of the defining, deeply human moments of his career, a reminder that even at the highest level of the sport, family comes first. Now, more than 15 years later, family circumstances are pulling him away from the Open again. We don't know the full details, and honestly, that's not really our business to dig into. What we do know is that for the second time in his career, Mickelson has chosen to step away from major championship golf for reasons that have nothing to do with his game. Think about what Mickelson has meant to this championship specifically. He won the Claret Jug in 2013 at Muirfield, one of the most complete rounds of links golf anyone has ever played, closing with a 66 that turned a mediocre week into a career-defining Sunday. For over a decade before and after that win, Mickelson was appointment viewing at the Open. Fans didn't just watch him to see if he'd win, they watched him because you genuinely never knew what he was going to attempt next. A flop shot from an impossible lie. A driver off the deck on a par 3. Decisions that made commentators wince and crowds roar. Where other players calculated the safe route, Mickelson always seemed to be asking a different question. What's the most interesting way to hit this shot? So what happens now? Is this the end of Mickelson at major championship golf entirely? Or is 2026 simply a one-year pause built around something more important than a golf tournament? At 55 years old, and with his LIV golf schedule already thin this season, it's a fair question to ask whether we'll see him back in a major field again at all. Those aren't easy questions, and honestly, nobody outside his camp really has the answer right now. What we do know is that the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale is moving forward without him, and without a lot of the names that once defined this event. Tiger Woods isn't in the field either, continuing his own extended absence from major championship golf this year. Between Woods, Mickelson, and now Oosthuizen, the list of past champions missing from Royal Birkdale has gotten long enough that it's impossible to ignore. That doesn't mean this year's championship will lack drama. Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and Bryson DeChambeau are all in the field, and any one of them walking away with the Claret Jug would be a massive story in its own right. But there's a difference between a major missing star power and a major that feels like it's genuinely turning a page, and this one has started to feel like the second thing. No matter who's hoisting the trophy this weekend, this year's Open Championship is going to be remembered for who wasn't there just as much as for who was. It's the moment when a generation of major champions defined by creativity, grit, and unforgettable Sundays started handing the stage over to whoever's next. So here's what I want to know from you. Which story caught you more off guard? Oosthuizen's withdrawal and the injury history behind it, or Mickelson ending a 36-year major streak? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I really do read them. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.